Who are the top 10 teams in the NFL entering the 2024 NFL season? What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch here, back live on the BR app, here to give you my top 10 teams once again in the NFL. Now that the preseason is over, it's time to really think about the upcoming season. I'm not going to spend time talking about 2023. I am going to be predicting, previewing, and giving you my thoughts on the teams that I believe will be the best this season. So these are the top 10 teams in the NFL entering the NFL season based on the roster, based on the coaching, based on all the intangibles that we've seen this preseason. Let's begin, guys. Let's start it off and let me know in the comments how you feel about my list. If you have an agreement or disagreement, please let me know. We love to hear the feedback. I will say this one is going to be a bit of a switch up. I've been ranking NFL teams all preseason long. I have some different opinions and I'm going to stick to them. So let's begin. At number 10 with my favorite player in the NFL, number 17 of the Buffalo Bills, and the team is the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. So I've got the Bills at number 10. They have Josh Allen, but they have many question marks about this team, which is why they're at number 10. And I've moved them down. Now, Matt Milano obviously got injured during the preseason, during training camp. That's a huge loss. I've been speaking about how he is the most valuable, important player on their defense. And without him, Sean McDermott just simply can't get away with some of the coverages he utilizes and just the way that he structures his defense. His defense is so much about disguise in the back end with the safeties and the linebackers being able to have range and coverage. So now with new safeties, less experienced safeties, and without his guy at linebacker, it definitely puts a lot more pressure on these young players. Expect Terrell Bernard to step up, but I would just say the defense certainly entering this season has a lot more questions in the front seven. I do think that McDermott usually produces good defense, and I do feel like a full offseason with Joe Brady is going to allow Josh Allen to play at his best. I think that Khalil Shakir is going to be the receiver that steps up and replaces Stephon Diggs the most. I think Curtis Samuel and Coleman will make plays, but I do believe that Shakir will be the guy when it comes to the receiving core. I think Dalton Kincaid's going to have a huge season. If you're drafting in fantasy, he's certainly a target at tight end. And James Cook is a legit home run running back all the way around. The offensive line, very capable. They've had some switch ups, new center, but I don't think that's really going to be a huge deal for them, honestly. I think the offensive line is low-key coming off an extremely good season, especially in terms of their pass blocking. I think that they're actually going to become a more run, two tight end offense with Josh Allen making plays with his legs, making plays off play action, making plays in scramble drill. And I don't think they're going to miss Stephon Diggs all that much from an ego standpoint. I think there's a lot there that just wasn't vibing with the team at that moment. I think they were right to move on and to move forward. And my biggest questions kind of come down to just the overall, like, early season portion of the roster talent of the receiving core, of the linebacking core, of the safeties, things like that, small things. But I think with a guy like that, Josh Allen at quarterback, who can carry your team, and a good fundamental franchise from a coaching perspective, I think that they'll grow as the season goes. I think they could become a dangerous team like they did last year, near December, near January, where they really start to figure things out. Maybe they get Matt Milano back and they become a dangerous team that you don't want to play as potentially a wild card or a division winner. But the Bills are at number 10. Now let's move to another team that's in the AFC East. And the Buffalo Bills are at 10 and the Jets are at 9. And I have the New York Jets at number 9. But the reason I have the Jets higher this time is I'm thinking about absolute peak. I'm thinking about absolute home run season. I'm thinking about the best that these teams could possibly play I honestly can say this. I probably will, at the end of the day, predict the Bills to win this division. But winning your division doesn't necessarily mean you're a bigger threat to get to the Super Bowl or win your conference. We've seen better Bills teams fall short, in my opinion, at least on paper. We don't really know what this Jets team is going to be, but when you look at it on paper and you just watch how Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball right now from training camp, I wish we would have got some preseason action. The Jets have such a high ceiling. This is one of the most talented teams, rosters in the NFL. They've upgraded their offensive line. Aaron Rodgers must be motivated to prove people wrong. Garrett Wilson is motivated to have a quarterback that can throw him the ball accurately and on time. Mike Williams is coming back soon. Breece Hall is a legit top 3 running back, in my opinion, in the NFL, one of the biggest home run hitters in football. And you've got a defense that is in the conversation for the best in the league. Now, I don't know what's going on with Hassan Reddick. I don't know if he's ever going to come back, but I think the defense, is going to be very, very good. Quinnen Williams up front. I think people are sleeping on Will McDonald and what he'll become in his second NFL season. I think Jermaine Johnson could take a major step forward. I think they arguably, if not even arguably, I think they have the best linebacker duo in football with CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams, especially with Fred Warner not really having Dre Greenlaw next to him in San Francisco, at least for now. The corners are awesome. I just feel like this team is going to be physical, but they're also going to be smart on offense. I think that Rodgers is going to be able to control games. I think that the offense isn't going to be overwhelming, but I think they're going to make plays in the run game. They're going to run the ball well. We saw that late last year where they were really running the ball well, and now they've made all these additions to the offensive line like Tyron Smith and John Simpson, who's a really good run blocker, Morgan Moses. I think they're going to run the ball really well. That's going to set up some play action. That's going to set up some Aaron Rodgers stuff. And I think Rodgers and Garrett Wilson is going to be one of the best combinations in football this year. I love Garrett Wilson in fantasy this year. Tyler Conklin's a reliable tight end. I just think that as a well-rounded team, they have this ingredient of the defense where they're going to be able to go to January football and knock off the best teams because they have a superior defense that in the playoffs is going to be able to slow down any offense they come against, whether it be the Bengals or they be the Texans or it be the Chiefs. Yes, the Bills have Josh Allen, but to me, the Jets, if Rodgers plays anywhere close to MVP form, this team is going to be extremely dangerous. So at number 9, I have the New York Jets. At number 8, I have the Baltimore Ravens. And this is one that consistently people have been upset with me about because I have them too low, apparently. But guys, this is not based on last year. This is based on coming up to the 2024 NFL season. And yes, the Ravens do have the reigning MVP, and I love Lamar Jackson. He's a phenomenal player. But they have so many questions about major aspects of their team. I still think they're going to be in the playoffs. I still think they're going to win 11 games. I just don't think they're going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC and a real, true Super Bowl contender. And I think there's going to be turnover when it comes to their defense. Like, I would say the Jets have a higher ceiling. If we're just comparing, I think the Jets have a higher ceiling than the Ravens. That might sound nuts, but I honestly think that. I think the Ravens are going to be like an 11 win. What they were after. Do you remember the season after 2019 when they went in 2020? I believe they went to the playoffs and they beat the Titans, but then they lost to the Bills in the divisional round. That's kind of how I feel the Ravens will be this year. They're going to make the playoffs. They might win a playoff game. They might not win a playoff game. But I don't think they're getting super far. And the reason for that is the offensive line has major questions. 3, replaced players. So 3 starters are gone, and they're having to replace those 3 players. During the preseason, the offensive line didn't look fantastic. Secondly, they've lost 3 important defensive coaches. Mike McDonald, who's become the head coach of the Seahawks, and 2 play callers for the Titans and the Dolphins. So 2 position coaches on the Ravens last year have become play callers, defensive coordinators on other teams. So that's a major brain drain of the defense. On top of that, they lost key components like Pat Queen, like Geno Stone, like Jadeveon Clowney to all 3 levels of their defense. So while I still feel they have a lot of talent, there's no doubt about it, I don't feel they're a juggernaut like last year. I think people are kind of falling in love with Derrick Henry. Mark Andrews is healthy. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I expect a jump from Isaiah Likely this year. I think he'll play more. I think he'll be very effective. I expect a huge jump from Zay Flowers. I do somewhat question the depth of their receiving core. I'm not a Rashad Bateman fan. Nelson Aguilar is extremely inconsistent, one of the most inconsistent football players we've ever seen, at least in my lifetime. Defensively, I think they'll be very good. I just don't think they'll be the best defense in the league. It's probably due for regression there. Roquan doesn't have his buddy Queen next to him. We'll see if Simpson can replace him. I love Marcus Williams, but he kind of misses like 6 games a year, it feels like. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton's a stud. Marlon Humphrey's very good, but he's getting a little bit older. I love their first-round pick at corner as well. And Justin Madubuike is fantastic, but they really struggled against the run last year. I feel like they need to be better in that area this season. I still view them as a playoff team. They still have an elite quarterback. I just feel like they have more holes than people are willing to discuss. So that's why I have them at number 8. I don't view them as a team that I'd pick to win the Super Bowl like many others are picking them right now. So let's transition to number 7. At number 7, the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles are, in my opinion, the team that will win the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys, I think, are going to take a little bit of a step back this year. I still think they'll be relevant. I still think they could make the playoffs. But the Eagles, I think, are going to be the team that really dominates from start to finish in this division. Now, they have a very difficult game off the bat. They play the Packers in week number 1 in Brazil, which is an extremely fun game. And they could lose that game just because the Packers are kind of a tough matchup for them in terms of the offense of the Packers, the speed of the Packers, as well as the coaching changes that the Eagles have made, the new personnel that they might have, that it's going to be difficult for them to kind of come into the season looking like a juggernaut just because they have a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, drastic changes on both sides of the ball, and, new pieces that they'll have to get involved. So they could still win that game, don't get me wrong, but what I love about the Eagles, Jalen Hurts is a great leader. Jalen Hurts, I would say, is a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but I think he's a good quarterback. I think that when he's healthy, especially, he's dynamic with both his arm for big plays and his legs. I love their receivers. I think Jahan Dotson, that trade is really interesting because I think he provides a little bit of depth at a position that they didn't have much depth at. Now, I don't think Jahan Dotson is some phenomenal player, but I do feel as a slot player, as a 3, he's pretty decent. He's quality. So you put him behind A.J. Brown, a game breaker, one of the best in the league, and Devontae Smith, who enters another NFL season where still feels like there's that little bit left for him to break out. It feels like he's been very good, but he hasn't quite taken that next step. Could that be coming? I don't know. Dallas Goedert is a very good tight end all around, and Saquon provides, I think, not only a running back that can run, catch, block, be a workhorse for this offense in a unique way, but also he is very motivated. He's never been on this talented of a team, and I think he's a very good locker room and leadership presence as well, just the mentality that Saquon has. So I think he'll bring this offense together to new heights. Defensively, I do have my questions. They were awful last year. It was one of the worst units I've ever seen by the end of a season from the drop-off they had from the year previous. They were like an all-time sacking team the year before in 2022. They couldn't even tackle Cade Otton in the playoffs. It was that bad. But they do look pretty fierce up front. From what I've seen in the preseason and also read in the training camp reports, they look pretty good. Jalen Carter's an absolute stud. I feel like they need someone else to step up there in the interior now that Fletcher Cox is retired. Will it be Jordan Davis? Will it be Milton Williams? Who will it be? But they need somebody to step up. The edge rush position, I think that Huff and Sweat will provide quality pressure. They've got Brandon Graham. They've got Nolan Smith. Plenty of depth there. I think Fangio will use them correctly. Linebacker is the big question mark about this unit. I think that that's where they'll really struggle against teams like the Niners and the Packers and things like that, teams that really directly attack and just spam the middle of the field. They'll have difficulty with that, but I do think they're better in the back end. I think they're faster. They're younger. Quinyon Mitchell should help. Avonte Maddox looks healthy. CJ Gardner-Johnson is there. And then obviously they added Cooper DeJean. Darius Slay is still there. They still got talent. It's a matter of it coming together and looking better than last year. And thankfully, James Bradbury will not be playing. That's good. But I think the Eagles at number 7, they have a higher ceiling than this, but they also, to me, have a little bit of a lower floor. They have a ton of talent. You would hope that the coaching staff can get it right this year. We've also heard about the rumblings of Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, which isn't good vibes. But I just think that the coordinator changes and improvements and the overall roster talent is too much to ignore. So I have them at number 7. At number 6, a team that to me feels pretty similar to the Eagles just in terms of their build, but I feel like they're more reliable from a culture standpoint. And I also feel like they're better coached. I know more about their coaching, and that's the Detroit Lions, who went to the NFC Championship last year. I don't think there's any reason to doubt the Lions this year. I think that the Lions have an excellent offense led by one of the top 3 or 4 offensive play callers in the NFL with Ben Johnson. And Jared Goff is very consistent, especially when he's able to play indoors, which he's going to be playing a lot this year. He gets to ignore and avoid the outdoors, which is nice. They have young players that are really ascending in, Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams could have a huge year. Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs, even Jack Campbell. These guys, even like Aiden Hutchinson and Amon-Ra are like in their prime. So the Lions have a number of players that are rather just entering that stage where they could break out, or they're right there in their prime, Aiden Hutchinson and those guys, right? Then they have a very strong, I feel like, just mentality and overall identity led by their coach, Dan Campbell. They're going to go for it. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to, doesn't matter. If they're an underdog, they're going to be right in there, in your face, biting kneecaps, right? But if they're also favored, they're going to let you have it. They're going to run up the score. We saw a number of times last year, teams just couldn't simply stop them. They were too overpowering up front with their offensive line, which is, in my opinion, the best in the NFL, as long as it stays healthy. Which there might be a little bit concern about the age of some of their players now on the offensive line. I don't think that's talked enough about, but I do feel like when they're collectively together, they have arguably the best right tackle in the sport. They have arguably the best center in the sport. They have a very good left tackle. I love the running back combination. They do need a receiver to step up outside of St. Brown. I think it will be Jamison Williams, at least enough to the degree where he's an upgrade over Josh Reynolds from last year. And then defensively, I love the addition of DJ Reader alongside Aleem McNeil, which I think is a super underrated defensive tackle combination. And they did upgrade their secondary, which I've talked a lot about. I think that Carlton Davis will at least provide stability at CB1. And I think Branch can now move around with the addition of Arnold and the addition of Rakestraw and the addition of Amik Robertson. It allows Branch to kind of do whatever they want him to do at the safety position. He could play nickel, he could play safety. So the Lions have, to me, just less holes than last year, but that might not actually result in as long of a run because the Eagles fell off last year. There was no one that was really that good in the NFC other than the Niners. Like, the NFC was really bad. I think there's an ascending team in their own division that the Lions need to be looking over their shoulder for, and that team is the Green Bay Packers at number 5. I moved the Packers up, and the reason for this is I actually predicted the Lions to win their division. And again, this is a Jets-Bills situation. But I'm switching things up here on my top 10, and I'm going with teams that I feel like have more upside. I feel like the Packers, if things go right for them, not only do I think they're a lock to make the playoffs. I don't think people are discussing the Packers in proper manner. The Packers are going to make the playoffs. Don't worry about that. How far will the Packers go? How good can this Packers team actually be? Hopefully it didn't pause there. I don't know why my thing went crazy. But at number 5, I've got the Packers. And the reason for that is the Packers are young. The Packers are ascending. If they are the team that they were late last year, I think that they're going to be very, very, very dangerous. And I think they will be that team. First of all, they have one of the best coaches in the league, Matt LaFleur. They have a quarterback in Jordan Love, who I think is about to take another step in really his second season of starting. Jordan Love has a great arm. Jordan Love has great downfield touch. Jordan Love is wicked in the pocket with his movement, his ability to throw off platform, his ability to avoid pressure and throw under pressure. The receiving core is healthy right now, and they're all young and entering their prime. I'm extremely pumped for Christian Watson. I think Reed is a really good slot player. Romeo Doubs is getting praised left and right by his quarterback, Jordan Love. And Wicks is like everybody's favorite late round sleeper. So they might have one of the best receiving cores in the league. You throw in Luke Musgrave, you throw in Josh Jacobs, a running back that probably will be more available than Aaron Jones has been, maybe less explosive, but I think he brings more of a power element, a 3-down element, a workhorse element that Matt LaFleur has really been looking for. He's somebody that can catch the ball, run the ball. He's great in between the tackles. He'll bring more physicality and power to the offense. And I think that's going to only set up big plays down the field for Jordan Love and these receivers. Defensively is really where I think people are sleeping on them. I don't think people realize how much improvement they might have just by simply switching their defensive coordinator. I felt like the last couple of years that they had the worst defensive coordinator in the sport. That was Mr. Barry. They have switched to Hafley, who I feel is going to bring a system. He runs more of like a San Francisco 49er system. This is going to unlock their pass rush. Guys like Kenny Clark, guys like Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt especially. These guys are going to get after the quarterback now. I could see them putting up sacks, pressures, sacks, lead to turnovers. This could be a much better defense from bottom to top, top to bottom. The secondary just has to stay healthy. Remember, last year, they did make the playoffs. They were, 9-8, I think? But ultimately, they were very injured too. Not only were they going through the early season, kind of working through basically having a rookie quarterback in Jordan Love, trying to get a feel for the NFL, Matt LaFleur getting a feel for this team, but they lost a ton of receivers. They lost Aaron Jones for a large majority of the year. They were losing Alexander and their corners, Stokes, all year long. Like, they were going through a lot of injuries last year. They add Xavier McKinney to the back end, I think really provides some security and some versatility to safety. I just think this is a very young team, and I always want to be on the bandwagon before it really peaks and it really starts getting there. So at number 5, I have the Packers. Get on the bandwagon before it's too late, guys. At number 4, I have another team that I want to be early on and not late. And I've actually switched them from number 3 to number 4. That is the Houston Texans. The Texans are at number 4. CJ Stroud. I honestly think if CJ Stroud is the best quarterback in the NFL this year, no one would be surprised. CJ Stroud is that good. He is that good. There was a play in the preseason where he was like in his own end zone and he was just running around like so calmly. And then he just throws a 25-yard strike like it's no big deal in his own end zone. But the Houston Texans, they have everything that anyone looks for in a contender. And just because they have not put up a 12-win season before, it doesn't mean it won't happen in 2024. Like, you guys got to think ahead, right? They have a receiving core that is out of this world talented. Nico Collins is a beast. He's a beast. Tank Dell is one of the best young route runners in the sport. Stephon Diggs was added. They've got Dalton Schultz and Joe Mixon, former Pro Bowlers in their own right. The offensive line was the worst in terms of injuries in the NFL last year. They were the most injured offensive line that, I saw a stat. I don't know what, database it was, but they were like the most injured O-line we've ever seen in the last 20 years. So if they're a little bit more healthy on the O-line, They're able to provide a little bit more push for Joe Mixon, who I think is going to be more quality in those short yardage situations, red zone situations, third downs, big plays than Devin Singletary. I think that they're going to really be a big play offense. Stroud could lead the NFL in passing yards this year. I wouldn't doubt that at all. And the defense, I mean, Danielle Hunter, I like Jonathan Grenard, but he's not Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter is a beast. He's a 17, 16 sack guy. Will Anderson could be a top 10 edge rusher this year for sure. Their linebackers are fast. Al-Shaair and Harris as well. Petrie enters another season. Stingley could be a stud this year. They've got lots of depth at all three levels on the defense, which I really love. And DeMeco Ryans has another year to work with all these guys on defense. He's one of the best defensive minds in the sport. Very good coaching staff, shutdown corner, great edge rushers, great receiving core, talented running back, young, awesome quarterback. Like, they have everything you look for. So at number 4, I've got the Houston Texans. Entering the top 3. At number 3, I moved the Bengals up to number 3 because I think that the Bengals just have this, they just have this thing where when Joe Burrow is healthy, everybody fears the Bengals in the playoffs. Everybody. That includes the Chiefs. And I can't get this thought out of my mind. When the Bengals played the Niners last year, they just shredded them. They shredded them. The Bengals were like peaking last year at the right time, and then Burrow got hurt. And then they still end up going 9-8 without one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. Like, Burrow just has this control, this feel of this offense. When Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in a contract year is going to be a different animal. This guy could really look the best he's ever looked in his NFL career. You got T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. I'm really excited for this offense. I think just like the Texans, they're going to be a dynamic passing attack. I think if you ask, probably the top 3 or 4 passing attacks in the NFL, you probably got those 2 teams, the Chiefs, and I don't know, maybe a team that I haven't talked about yet. But I feel like the Bengals are going to be really, really good. And I'm not really worried about losing Joe Mixon. I feel like Chase Brown's going to be actually a plus in the receiving department. I think Zach Moss will be good as a grinder in between the tackles. But what I'm excited for is the offensive line. It's the best offensive line of Burrow's career. I expect Orlando and Trent Brown to be one of the best tackle combos in football this year. And defensively is really what elevated them from number 4 to number 3. I've seen great stuff from the camps, camp and preseason. I thought they did really well against Caleb Williams with their backups early in the game. And that Bears team, people are talking about like they were like shutting Caleb down until like the second, third, fourth drive, like the third, fourth drive, I should say. But then they were also like making fun of Anthony Richardson because they were dominating him so bad in Colts practice. So Logan Wilson, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard's healthy. I like the secondary. Cam Taylor-Britt slept on. Look out for him. Improvement at safety, which I think unlocks big game, lose game plans, right? The biggest problem with this defense last year was 1, some of the run defense stuff, but number 2, safeties. They weren't able to play at a high level intelligently at the safety position. I think now that they've got guys like Geno Stone and Von Bell in there, it's going to allow them to mix up coverages and be creative and do all the things that they want to do that they did in 2021 and 2022. So I think the Bengals defense is going to be one of the most improved units this year because they were not very good last year. At number 3, I have the Bengals. Look out for them as a Super Bowl contender. The top 2 is obvious, but I've made a switch and everyone's going to hate me in the chat. And it's okay. It's okay. At number 2, I got the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, I do. Now, I'm not afraid. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs, I think there's some bad things going on right now. First of all, I don't love their left tackle situation. It's a rookie. I don't love that. Number 2, I don't know what's going on with Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. He's going to be injured or out. They just signed Juju. That's not exactly a good thing, in my opinion. Like, why? It doesn't make me feel confident about the receiving core. Like, this receiving core is supposed to, like, set the world on fire. Maybe that's bad news for Rashee Rice and a suspension. I don't know, but I think Rashee Rice should be fine. I think he'll be playing all year. Travis Kelce, I just don't feel like this guy is going to be playing at the same level this year. I just don't. Now, maybe he will come playoff time, but I almost feel like he's almost semi-retired. I don't know what I just get this sense. I don't know. Joe Tooney's coming off a major injury. They just paid Creed Humphrey a ton of money, which is great. He deserves it. Jawan Taylor just isn't good. They don't have any backfield depth. Like Isaiah Pacheco is great, but they don't have any backfield depth. So yeah, I think Worthy's looking awesome, which is really promising. I think if Rice is out there, he'll have a huge year. And Pacheco should have a huge year because like there's got nobody else. So they need him to play really well. And obviously they have Mahomes. They have Andy Reid. That's great, right? The defense, I think, is going to be very good because I think Spags is a great coordinator. And I like their linebackers a lot and the flexibility they can have with guys like Tranquil and Chanel to complement Bolton. I love the versatility they bring. I think the D-line is kind of underwhelming to some degree. Like Chris Jones is amazing, but Omeni Hughes is hurt right now. He's not going to be there. So it's really like George Karlaftis, who's a workhorse, but not Max Crosby. And the other DN is like Mike Dana, who's a better rotation player. So the D-line is kind of like, I'm not like super pumped about it. I think the secondary should take a little bit of a step back, losing one of the best corners in the league in L'Jarius Sneed, but I still think they're very good because of Trent McDuffie, the scheme as well. And then I think there's guys that can step up like Williams, for example. I like Justin Reed a lot at safety. They get Cook back healthy. So the defense will still be top 10 in my opinion. I just don't think it's going to be historically great in the playoffs like they were last year. So the offense is going to have to pick it up a little bit more, but they should be able to. So the Chiefs are obviously Super Bowl champs, but they're looking for that three-peat. They're looking for history. Nobody's ever done it before. If we're really predicting who's going to win the Super Bowl, it probably won't be the Chiefs, but at the same time, you can't deny that they can definitely do it. So at number 2, I have the Chiefs. And at number 1, the 49ers. I've got the 49ers at number 1. For the last 2 weeks, I've been saying I really want to put the Niners at number 1. I really want to put the Niners at number 1. I really want to put the Niners at number 1. And now I'm just going to do it. I don't care. At this point, the Chief Kingdom, save it. Okay, we've got the Niners at number 1. And the reason for it is I just continue to be impressed by these young players that the Niners have added to their team. And I feel like they're the best roster in the league. I think they've got a top 2 coach in the NFL in Kyle Shanahan. And Brock Purdy is entering year 3, which I feel like could be a big deal. He's had a full offseason to get stronger, to learn, this offense to a different degree and level. I mean, this guy could really go off this year. Now, I'm a little bit concerned about Trent Williams potentially not playing in week 1 and Brandon Ayuk with his whole contract situation. But both players should be there at the end of the day. And I'm not really predicting this list or like giving you this list, this rankings based on week 1 alone. Although I still think they should be favored and they should beat the Jets at home on Monday Night Football, which is not going to be an easy game, but they should do that. Now, when I look at this team, I think the biggest decision why I move them up to 1 is I think that their defense is going to be better than last year. I don't think enough people are talking about this defense. And I think the Niners, like everybody knows, like they were the best defense in the NFL in 2022, and they were one of the best by the end of 2021. But I don't think people are talking enough about like the switch in coordinator. I honestly thought Steve Wilkes lost them the Super Bowl. Like I thought that Steve Wilkes probably should have lost them the NFC divisional game and the NFC championship game if it were not for their offense being outrageous in the second half of those games. I don't think Steve Wilkes was a fit. I don't think Steve Wilkes was good. I don't think Steve Wilkes called the right plays in the right moments. I thought he got out-coached consistently. For the first time in the Kyle Shanahan era, we saw a defensive coordinator get taken to task like each and every week. So for me, I look at this and then I look at the improvement in terms of the depth of the defense. I think the corner position has improved. With Green from the draft, with Yadam from the Saints, even Rock Ya-Sin, if they keep him on the team, like they go like now instead of 2 deep last year where they were relying so much on Charvarius Ward and Lenore, like Ambry Thomas was their number 3 last year. He was not good. Teams would consistently throw against him and just ignore Charvarius Ward. So for me, I feel like they're much deeper at corner. I think they're deeper at safety this year. They had to pick up Logan Ryan off a cruise to start in the Super Bowl, guys. Like, now they've got Malik Mustafa, who looks like a man on a mission from the rookie class that they drafted. He's lighting people up left and right. Obviously, Hufanga will come back at some point. Again, not a projection for week 1, but down the road. Jair Brown enters another season of an NFL career. I think he was a rookie last year. Enters year number 2 now. He could be a pretty darn good player. So their safeties are better, deeper. Devondre Campbell has been in the mix at linebacker. D. Winters has looked really good at linebacker. So these are layers behind Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. The defensive line, I think they're one of the more underrated areas. They got better against the run this offseason. Malik Collins, I think, helps them against the run. I think Leonard Floyd helps them against the run in comparison to Chase Young. So the defense is the reason I think this team is number 1 for me, because the offense is already the best in the league. We already know how good the offense is. They've got Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Jawan Jennings, George Kittle, maybe Ricky Pearsall at some point. And they added another piece to the O-line with Dominic Pooney in the draft. So the offense is amazing. There's no problem there. It's the defense kind of like was very overrated by the end of last year. And I think they're going to be once again back in that top 10. So that's why I have them at number 1. And those are my top 10 teams entering 2024. Let's just quickly recap it. So at number 10, the Buffalo Bills. At number 9, the New York Jets. At number 8, the Baltimore Ravens. At number 7, the Philadelphia Eagles. At number 6, the Detroit Lions. Number 5, the Green Bay Packers. 4, the Texans. At number 3, the Cincinnati Bengals. At number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. And at number 1, the San Francisco bang, bang 49ers. So that's the top 10, guys. I made some switches. I went a little bit more bold with my picks, a little bit more bold with my rankings. I really feel good about the top 4. I think the Bengals are going to be back. I think the Texans are going to be an absolute nightmare. And I think the Packers are that team that you shouldn't doubt is really on the rise. The bottom half of the top 10, I could have switched the AFC East teams, the Jets and the Bills, definitely. That's interchangeable for me. The Lions feel more consistent than the Eagles, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles were better than the Lions this year. I also wouldn't be shocked if the Lions were better than the Packers. So the 5 through 7 is pretty interchangeable. I feel pretty confident the Ravens won't be an elite team, but a very good team this year. So that's kind of the range that I'm thinking for those teams. Just quickly looking at the chat. No Trent with no Super Bowl. Well, Trent will definitely be there eventually. I'm not worried about that. Jay says, you're also very knowledgeable about both sides of the ball, which is hard to do. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that. This is a very good list. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. I actually feel like a lot of people are going to hate on this list. I don't know what people were saying during the chat. I think they're probably hating, but you guys got to do your homework. I'm just saying, Texans are overrated. Can you please explain why the Texans are overrated? Please explain it. I already talked about why. I already talked about it. The O-line was injured. Their receiving core was injured. They only had Nico Collins by the end of the year. They still won a playoff game by like 30 points. Yes, they lost the Ravens in Baltimore. The Ravens last year were a juggernaut. Stroud is entering year 2. All these elements of their team, man. Like the Texans, they improved their receiving core is insane now. Like people forget Tank Dell was hurt. Tank Dell was hurt. Noah Brown was even hurt. They didn't have anyone other than Nico. Right? They had Devin Singletary instead of Joe Mixon. Their defense, they got Danielle Hunter now, bro. Like Derek Stingley could be just different this year. So, man, I think the Texans are sick. Perfect list, says AC. Thank you, man. I didn't give any upside. I hated the entire segment. That's only because everyone expects them to be at number 1. So I have to justify my opinion. The upside with the Chiefs is that their receiving core is much better. Worthy is a stud as a rookie. They figure out left tackle, hopefully. Isaiah Pacheco is the best Pacheco we've ever seen. And their offense reverts to 2022 form and not 2023 form. But I will say this. It's not going to be because of Juju. The guy cannot even run. He can't run. I just watched him last year on my Patriots. He's done, bro. He's done. It's not because of Juju. Defensively, I still think they'll be, so again, the up case, they're better on offense. The defense is maybe a little bit worse, but like very close to the same, which allows them to be better than last year, which they weren't a great regular season team last year. They just found their rhythm in the playoffs. So if they're better in the regular season, I wouldn't be shocked at all. I actually expect it. I expect them to be better this regular season than last regular season. TP says, let's see how the Texans do this year. When playing the number one schedule, I think they're good, but not top 5. That's fair, man. You're entitled to your opinion. I just think there's no real reason to not think they're great. There is no real I have yet to hear a reason why people don't think they're very good. Like a legitimate football reason why they're not great. I think they're a lock to win their division. They may not win 13 games or whatever, but I still think they're a lock to win their division. Intercept says, I think the Packers can be moved down a little. That's fair. The Packers are definitely a bit of not a guess, but a bit of a guess, but also like a projection. They're a bit of a projection based on what we saw at the end of last year. When you really think about it, guys, and you think about who are the top 5 teams by the end of last season, the Chiefs and the Niners, the Lions, right? And probably the Chiefs and the Ravens, and then it was the Packers, probably, right? Like the Packers or the Bills, I guess, right? So they were at least in the top 6 by the end of last year. Now you expect defensive improvement, young players ascending at multiple levels, receiver, defensive line, linebacker. Like you really think about it, the Packers were a top 6 team by the end of last year. The Ravens, again, I'm projecting a bit of a fall this year. So they're definitely top 10. There's no doubt about that. But I just think they'll be a little bit worse than people think. So that's why I have them at number 8. That's a little bit more of a bold against consensus pick, in my opinion. TP says, for sure, Colts, Jags, and Titans, they should walk through their division. I do think the Jags will be pretty good. Just to go over the 5 teams before I go that I think could definitely be in this list, because I was almost going to do a top 15 for this video. The Rams were a team that I think I thought about. I think their defense is very young, which gives me uncertainty, which is why they weren't in the top 10. But I love their offense, especially if Cooper Kupp is back to the form that he was in 2022 and their offensive line is healthy. Stafford's a stud. McVay is a stud. So they'll be relevant. I do think the Dolphins are extremely talented. They're very, very, very explosive, but I am very worried about the D-line and the O-line, especially to start the year. I actually think Jacksonville, they play Miami in week 1. I wouldn't be shocked if Jacksonville upset the Dolphins just based on how the Dolphins defense looks entering week 1 in terms of the injuries that they have. Jacksonville, I really like what I saw from Trevor Lawrence, the recent preseason action. Even Mac Jones been lighting it up. That's a good sign for the offense. It's a good sign for the offensive line. Good sign for the receiving core. I think they've got a really underrated receiving core. ETN's a good back. I think the defense will be improved because Ryan Nielsen is one of my favorite defensive coordinators. The Cowboys are certainly in the discussion still. They still have studs like CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs. They did lose Deron Bland for a while. That's going to hurt. But I think the O-line will still be decent, even if they lost Tyron Smith. Then my number 15, I was kind of up to, is it the Bears or the Seahawks? Those were the 2 teams I was kind of thinking about. The Bears, the Seahawks. The Bears or the Seahawks. The Bears, like, I like their offense more, but the Seahawks, I'm like in love with this defense with Mike McDonald running it. And then also I think the offense, the receiving core they have, I'm worried about the offensive line. So those were the 2 teams I was kind of debating at 15. I think the Seahawks or the Bears will be that like NFC like 7 seed type deal. So that's who I had at number 15. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to follow me here on Bleacher Report and make sure to tune into the rest of the streams. I will be throughout September breaking down the Monday morning reaction of whatever happened on Sunday. I'll be back here with my thoughts. So make sure to follow me here on the BR app for upcoming streams throughout the NFL season. Peace, guys.